What's up, y'all? So imagine watching 320 men perish in a massive explosion, then being told that you caused it just because you refused to suffer the same fate. Let's talk about the Port Chicago 50. 50 black sailors who were put on trial not for what they did, but for what the Navy refused to take responsibility for. So picture this: 1944, Port Chicago, California. The Navy has black sailors loading live munitions without training in unsafe conditions under racist officers who bark orders but don't lift a finger themselves. Then, boom, a blast levels the base. 320 men lose their lives instantly. Over 200 of them were black. Now, the Navy then scrambles to cover its tracks, but instead of fixing anything, they send survivors right back to the same deadly job. No changes, no safety improvements, no explanation. 50 of these men say, nah, not again. They refuse to load. Not violently, not disrespectfully. They just refuse to lose their lives. So, how does the Navy respond? With justice? No. They charge all 50 with mutiny, which, by the way, during that time, was punishable by unaliving. And here's where it gets worse. The Navy invites the national press to the trial. Like, hey, come watch us put these men in their place. And guess who shows up? A young civil rights lawyer named Thurgood Marshall. Yeah, future Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. Now he watches 12 days of this circus play out and says, look, this is not 50 men on trial for mutiny. This is the Navy on trial for its whole vicious policy toward Negroes. The trial? The trial is a setup. The sailors can't pick their own lawyers. They're grouped in blocks of 10 with shared attorneys. Witnesses can't talk about racism or unsafe conditions. And defense lawyers are ordered to avoid making the Navy look bad. So one sailor said, we wasn't allowed to say anything but what they would ask us. And Marshall, well, he was denied access to Navy documents. He was told, you're a civilian, so stay out of it. Even when he begs to see evidence that could exonerate the men, he gets shut down. So, what's the Navy's argument in this? Well, they start talking about mass fear. They say that the sailors weren't resisting injustice, they were just scared. They even argue that black sailors are untrainable and emotionally unstable. Y'all, this was their actual defense. One officer even admitted that only 5 of the 50 men said that they were scared. But that didn't matter because the Navy wasn't after justice, they were after a cover up. So there was no evidence of mutiny, no orders directly disobeyed, no weapons, no takeover, no plan. So mid trial, the prosecution then changes the charge to conspiracy to commit mutiny, which basically them saying, well, we know nothing happened, but maybe they thought about doing something. Now, doesn't that sound familiar, like when they see a group of black people huddled together? Maybe they thought about doing something. Maybe they thought about robbing something. Maybe they thought about doing some kind of crime. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So even then, they had no proof. Couldn't ID who said what. Couldn't prove a single meeting, a plan, nothing. Didn't matter. The jury, which was a group of high-ranking white Navy officers, deliberated for 80 minutes. Now that's about 96 seconds per sailor. All 50 were guilty. 15 years, hard labor, and dishonorable discharge. Boy, Thurgood Marshall was furious. He said they were tried only because of their race and color. He pointed out that whenever more than one black person disobeys an order, it suddenly becomes mutiny. Now, ultimately, out of all 50, only one was ever pardoned. The others sadly passed away, and 2 of them refused pardons because they believed that they didn't do anything wrong. Now, the Navy blamed these men for refusing to lose their life. But the truth, the Port Chicago 50 were some of the bravest sailors in American history. Now, they didn't mutiny. They just protested a grave sentence wrapped in a uniform. Let's say their names. Let's tell their story. because this is what patriotism looks like.